Good evening, everyone. It is February 6th, 2024. I'd like to call this meeting of the Laramie City Council to order and invite you all to join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. City Clerk, you can call the roll.
Gabriel?
Here.
Richardson?
Here.
Shumway?
Here.
Somerville is absent. Cumby?
Here.
And Harrington.
Here. And City Clerk, Councilor Somerville just popped into the...
Yep.
Just saw that. Thank you. All right. We are going to move to public comments on non-agenda items. Reminder, you need to have your camera on if you are going to comment on Zoom. Anybody in the room? Please come forward. We'll just need your name. You'll have 3 minutes. Thank you.
Norbert Kriebel. I'm taking some paperwork to the city clerk. I didn't want to reach across in case there were ninjas behind there.
Something needs to keep us safe.
So I've been thinking about the rental program for a while. I'm trying to formulate some ideas around it. And what I have shared is a current straw man that I'm working on. It's mature enough for us to talk about, and I wanted to show and share with you guys what I've come up with so far. So currently, what I've seen is a lot of reports that are counting how many landlords are we enrolled in the program. I'm a landlord. I am enrolled in the program. I consider myself an investor in the program. That doesn't necessarily solve the problem. The problem that we have is warm, safe, ethical rental environment. And counting the number of landlords doesn't give us that answer. So what I've been thinking about, it was originally inspired by the incident report that we get from the police department. I don't think we have enough incidences to do this on a weekly basis, but on a quarterly basis, I think it would make sense. And what I put together here is a hypothetical of what it could look like. So first, we would start off with, what are the total license fees collected? For me as an investor, I know how many other investors are here. We have a clear representation of how much revenue have we collected so far. After that would be total expenditures to date. So we have an idea of what's being done with it. I listed out a number of different instances or incidents that we could be using, and then I realized actually in section 8.80.030, we already have these listed out. The one thing we're missing in there is non-regulated issues. We're going to have people who are coming forward and reporting things that don't actually fall under it, but let's capture those so that we have an understanding of what are some of these other things being listed. What would come after that is an action report. So we may, as Mr. Victor in a recent article pointed out, hey, here are these 8 things that have happened, but we haven't actually said what's happening with it. And then lastly would be, here are the things that the expenditures have been on. There's going to be staffing, legal expenses, there's going to be third-party inspections. We've just got a breakdown of what those costs are. That's not the time I have left. Why would we do this? And I thought to myself, well, how am I going to explain this? And I thought, let's just look at the words on the wall behind you guys. So respect. Let's show respect for the tenants in our community. My exposure as a landlord to the tenants who are having struggles are, they're alone. They're overwhelmed. They have a temporary or longer running financial issue going on. Let's provide for them some kind of a format that normalizes the act of reporting. Now, I follow the rental programs, or the rental pages here. I need to know who's looking for things. This is the market I operate in. I've also asked Ms. Provenza to provide me the report that she's getting. I need to know the good and the bad that's in my industry so that I can do better for the community I'm in. In those pages, there's a number of reports, and I have seen that people say, oh, go and report onto this site. But in the condition that a lot of these renters are in, they're not ready to go to another website where it's an impersonal interaction. I think if we're publishing a report that says, look, here are the incidences that are happening, it normalizes it more for them, and maybe we can be encouraging more feedback. So, respect. Integrity. Let's use.
Mr. Kriebel, I'll just let you know your 6 minutes or 3 minutes has expired, so just wrap up.
Okay. Integrity. Let's use transparency about the financials so that other people participate. Teamwork. This is a relationship between renters, the city, and landlords. And then finally, stewardship. If we're showing what the costs are and what the revenue coming in is, we're being transparent and showing your investors this is the progress we're making with this program. City Council, Honorable Mayor, thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Grebo. Appreciate you being here to share that with us. Thanks. You can leave it on if you want. Maybe somebody else will come right back up. Thank you. All right, council members, because we just had a sort of a wave that's a familiar pattern, I'm going to ask that we suspend the rules. If anyone's interested in making that motion to not allow Zoom comments during this agenda, public comment period.
I can go ahead.
Please.
Mayor, I move that we suspend the rules to not allow public comment on non-agenda items from folks via Zoom.
Second. Okay, motion by Pierce, second by Newman. All those in favor? Actually, City Clerk, I suppose we need a 2/3 majority, so I'll have you call the roll.
Gabriel?
Yes.
Newman?
Yes.
O'Doherty?
Yes.
Pierce?
Yes.
Richardson?
Yes.
Shumway?
Yes.
Somerville?
Yes.
Cumby?
Yes.
And Harrington.
Yes.
That is 9 yeses and 0 no, Your Honor.
Thank you, City Clerk. If any of those folks do happen to live in Laramie and have a legitimate comment to make, we'd invite you to City Hall to share it. Any other members? And there they all go. Okay. Anyone else have a public comment they'd like to share in the room? Okay, seeing none, I'm going to close the public comment period, and we will move then to changes in the agenda. Vice Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I move that the following changes to the agenda be approved. To add Resolution 20-24-6 to the agenda as item number 18-A.
Second.
Motion by Cumby, second by Pierce. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, that change has been approved. Vice Mayor.
I move that the agenda be set as changed.
Second.
Motion by Cumby, second by Richardson. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, the agenda has been set. Move on to proclamations, public hearings, and notifications, and I have the joy of reading the Random Acts of Kindness proclamation. Whereas the City of Laramie recognizes the value of acts of kindness that are performed without prompting or reason, and how these acts can positively impact the person offering kindness, the person receiving the act of kindness, and those witnessing. And whereas acts of kindness can be performed by any person in the City of Laramie regardless of the age, origin, education, gender, religious belief, lifestyle, or abilities for the good around them. And whereas kind individuals can create a more caring community and help to perpetuate genuine acts of kindness within their city, state, and even throughout the world. And whereas we seek to cultivate thoughtful and compassionate residents by teaching our youth to make a difference through random acts of kindness, and whereas the positive effects of kindness are contagious, which creates a domino effect of paying it forward. And whereas Random Acts of Kindness Week is recognized as an international celebration intended to encourage all of us to practice acts of kindness in our homes, schools, businesses, and communities. Now, therefore, be it resolved that I, Brian Harrington, acting as mayor and president of the governing body of the City of Laramie, do hereby proclaim February 17th through 11th through 17th as Random Acts of Kindness Week, and encourage the people of Laramie to practice random acts of kindness in the spirit of compassion, kindness, and goodwill towards all persons. And I believe we have Shelley Macy here, maybe? Okay, maybe not. We will get this to them. All right, we don't have any public hearings. I'm going to go to the city manager for any announcements.
Mayor, we have one announcement from the fire department.
Please. Welcome, and thanks for being here.
Of course.
Honorable Mayor, members of council, I'm Kevin Lamb, the Operations Chief with the City of Laramie Fire. In mid-January, a personal friend of mine and the director of the Albany County Drug Court, Claire Flaherty, reached out to me. She has a client that is graduating from her program, and this client had suffered a tragedy in her life, and she wanted to develop some sort of pay it forward, payback program. The story behind what she was getting at is she lost a child in a fire roughly 20 years ago. She had 3 young children. She was able to rescue 2, but she lost a 3rd. So she was injured during that fire. She became addicted to opioids, and that destroyed her life, her husband's life, her family's life over the course of that 20-year period. So fast forward to a couple of weeks ago, Claire reached out to me and said, my client wants to do something to say thank you for what help I have gotten and hope that this never happens to another family again. So she wanted to know, what can I do? Does the fire department do anything like this? Do they have resources? So we bantered back and forth for about a week or so on some ideas. I reached out to my fire marshal, Dennis Johnson, to see what kind of needs he has. And what we came up with, and this was more on the client's end than it was on the fire department's end, is they wanted to do a smoke detector drive. Now, smoke detectors are a regular staple in most homes, most businesses and whatnot. But some people don't have them, including her client. Her client did not have a smoke detector in their residence at the time of their fire, and that may have made a life-saving difference for them. So what we came up with is we're going to do a smoke detector drive. Citizens can come drop off a smoke detector. They don't need to sign anything. They don't need to talk to anybody. They can just drop off a brand new detector in the box. Inside the Fire Station 1. So we launched that, and over the course of a week, we collected roughly about a dozen detectors. But during that week, Fire Chief announced to me that council had gotten wind of this program, probably because you saw it announced on city social media page platforms. Whatnot. He said that the council maybe would like to extend this and make it better known to the public as opposed to just what you see on the sign on the door at Fire Station 1. So I reached out to Claire, said, is this okay with your client? And they were head over heels yes with that. So we extended this drive through the end of February. We get an extra day in February with it being a leap year. So with that, the program is basically, we're asking the public to please bring by a brand new smoke detector in the packaging. We don't want leftovers. We don't want one that you replaced, and you're dropping off your leftovers to us, whatnot. So in turn, what we will do with those detectors is we will use those for stock for need in our community. Smoke detector checks, battery checks, installations, those are a regular duty that our firefighters conduct around the city, typically by appointment, occasionally by we show up on a medical call and we're like, oh, you do not have a single smoke detector, and we'll coordinate another time to do an installation. Now granted, a big drive across the entire city to make sure every resident has a smoke detector is a lot larger undertaking, and that's not necessarily the focus of this, but this is a start to collect. I just checked our stock this evening right before I came over, and we're just over 2 dozen with what the public has donated already. So.
That's great, thank you.
Of course.
Vice Mayor?
I just have a question. Smoke detectors used to be always that big, and now they have the 3 or 4 packs that are smaller. Is that just as good, the smaller ones? If I were to bring in a 4-pack or?
Yeah, if it meets the need, battery operated, we're not probably going to be doing hardwire / battery backup installations because those require an awful lot more infrastructure as opposed to just a battery operated one. But as far as the size, typically the stuff that comes out of a hardware store has been vetted by lots of government officials with lots of letters behind their name saying this is good to go. So therefore, yeah, we'll put them to use.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, thank you. All right.
Thank you.
Councilors, let's all try to be sure we participate.
It is out currently on city social media platforms, and it has been extended. City clerk was kind enough to find the latest edition of the flyer, and you can read a little bit more about Jessica's story when you tie into that.
That's great.
All right. Appreciate your time.
And
Thank you.
pass the thanks along to Claire as well for helping us get this
Will do.
organized.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. Council members, any disclosures on items on the agenda? Okay. I'm going to move to the Vice Mayor for approval of the consent agenda.
I move that the consent agenda be approved and that each specific item on the consent agenda be approved as indicated.
Second.
Motion by the Vice Mayor, second by Councilor Richardson. City Clerk, you can call the roll.
Gabriel?
Yes.
Newman?
Yes.
O'Doherty?
Yes.
Pierce?
Yes.
Richardson?
Yes.
Shumway?
Yes.
Somerville?
Yes.
Cumby?
Yes.
And Harrington.
Yes.
That is 9 yeses and 0 no.
Thank you, City Clerk. Consent agenda has been approved. We will move on to item 11. Councilor Newman.
I move to approve Resolution 2024-14, amending appropriations for the fiscal year 2023-2024 biannual budget of the City of Laramie, Wyoming, to execute work required by settlement agreement and authorize the mayor and city clerk to sign.
Second.
Motion by Newman, second by Cumby. Director Webb, welcome.
Yeah, Honorable Mayor, Honorable Mayor, City Council. On January 3rd of this year, Council approved a settlement agreement with our water users out at the North Campus. The terms of that agreement require the city to complete some work as far as water connections, some service lines, and a one-time payment. So what I'm asking for tonight is the budget amendment so that we can complete that work. The terms of the agreement require us to complete that work by the end of this year. If you have any questions, I'm happy to take them.
Thank you. Council members, any questions? Okay. Seeing none, we'll go to the public on this item. If there's any member of the public that wishes to speak to this item, go ahead and raise your hand on Zoom or come forward in the room. Seeing none, I'll close that public comment period. Back to the council for any comments. Okay. Thank you to the staff that worked on this. I know it was not an abbreviated process, so thank you for that. City Clerk, you can call the roll.
Somerville?
Yes.
Shumway?
Yes.
Richardson?
Yes.
Pierce?
Yes.
O'Doherty?
Yes.
Newman?
Yes.
Gabriel?
Yes.
Cumby?
Yes.
And Harrington.
Yes.
It is 9 yeses and 0 no's, Your Honor.
Thank you, City Clerk. That item has been approved. We'll move on to item 12, Councilor Richardson.
I move that the Laramie City Council approve Resolution 2024-15, designating recreation project request priorities to the Albany County Recreation Board for funding consideration in fiscal year 2025 and authorize the mayor and clerk to sign.
Second.
Motion by Richardson, second by Pierce. Assistant City Manager, welcome.
The Honorable Mayor, City Council, this is a resolution that's an annual event for the City Council. The ACRB is the Albany County Rec Board, and they have the authorization to disperse funds that are approved by the Albany County School District, which are the rec mill levy, which is basically 1 mill on your property taxes that can be used for recreational purposes. Currently, the Albany County Rec Board accepts proposals from the City of Laramie, Albany County, Rock River, and Albany County School District for recreational projects. Each entity kind of runs their own process. There's a county process, a city process. We're not sure. We haven't seen projects from Rock River in a while, but there's also a school district process. The city's process begins as far back as in October when we release requests for proposals from past participants. We also advertise it on social media. It was on the radio. It was in the newspapers. It was actually well received. Those are due on December 14th. Staff provides them in a packet to the Parks, Tree, and Rec Advisory Board, which then hosts 2 meetings. The first meeting is presentations on the proposals so they can respond to questions. The second meeting is a priority meeting where they prioritize the projects and list of what they believe through some subjective criteria, is best projects in order of priority for city council to approve and formulate a resolution. This year, one thing that we added is we actually took it from subjective to kind of quantitative and took the subjective where people could get rated 0 through 4 based on 5 different criteria, similar to what you do with the community partner program. After all that work was conducted, we drafted up resolution 2415, which includes 20 projects to be submitted to the Albany County Recreation Board, totaling, scroll down a little bit, $456,133.70. With that, I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you, Assistant City Manager. Council members, any questions? Okay, we'll go to the public on this item. Any members of the public wishing to speak to this item, go ahead and raise your hand to come forward in the room. Okay, seeing none, we'll close the public comment period. Back to the council for any comments. Okay. City Clerk, please call the roll.
O'Doherty,
Yes.
Gabriel,
Yes.
Richardson,
Yes.
Newman,
Yes.
Somerville,
Yes.
Shumway,
Yes.
Pierce,
Yes.
Gumby,
Yes.
and Harrington.
Yes.
That is 9 yeses and 0 nos, Your Honor.
Thank you, City Clerk. That item has been approved. We'll move on to item 13. Councilor O'Doherty.
I move that the Laramie City Council approve the Fort Sanders Building lease agreement between the City of Laramie and Action Resources International feeding Laramie Valley for a term of 5 years and authorize the mayor and clerk to sign.
Second.
Motion by O'Doherty, second by Gabriel. Assistant City Manager.
Honorable Mayor, City Council, what you have before you is the lease on the Fort Sanders building that's located in Labonte Park. Since approximately 2013, Action Resources International feeding Laramie Valley has occupied that building under multiple different lease agreements. The lease agreement previously expired in 2021 and wasn't renewed. We were just kind of operating on a month-by-month basis. However, through work by Gail Woodsum, who's here tonight, would like to speak to you, who's the president of Action Resources International. They found that to provide extended benefits, they needed a lease that was executed and in place. The big change for this lease is that we're actually, due to the low nature, the low cost of the lease, we're transferring all maintenance requirements to the lessee and keep taking the city out of the maintenance of the building as it goes. There will be maintenance of insurance. Well, the city will keep insurance because it's an insurance building. If there is something catastrophic, there is a clause in there where they could come to us and ask if the city would be able to help, and that will be solely a city council decision.
Thank you.
With that, can I turn it over to Gail?
Yeah, Ms. Woodson, come up. Thank you for being here.
Thank you, Honorable Mayor, members of the council. My name is Gail Woodsum. I'm CEO of Action Resources International and the founder of Feeding Laramie Valley. And I just wanted to take this moment to thank you. The Fort Sanders building is the oldest building in Laramie, Fort Sanders being the first grouping of buildings. When they were dismantled a long time ago, this building is one of the few that remained relatively intact, moved to the city of Laramie, and then ultimately purchased by the Methodist Church, and then the Methodist Church turned it over to City Council and said, we'd like to gift to you this building that at that point was beginning to fall apart. And in its great wisdom, the City Council said, yes, we'll take it on one condition, that we move it to Labonte Park and it become a community service building. And then from that point on, as most of you probably know, it was the center for City Parks and Rec. In 1999, it became the Children's Museum for Laramie, and then it went empty in 2010, which is when we were working to put the first community garden in a city park, thanks to the City Council and Parks and Rec, in Labonte Park. And the whole time we were working on building that garden and getting it going, we were looking at this Fort Sanders building, which was now empty, but being renovated once again. And 11 years and 6 days ago, we submitted an application to an RFP saying we would like to take over the lease for this building. And we're thrilled, and we're at that time honored and felt privileged and continue to be so to take over the stewardship of that building as a community building. And so since June 1st of 2013, we have been there with numerous programs, including foster grandparents program, numerous AmeriCorps programs that we run throughout Albany County and across Wyoming, and Feeding Laramie Valley, which is our flagship food security program based here in Albany County and serves all of Albany County. And I can give you lots of numbers, which are wonderful at this point. We continue to serve. We stayed open through the pandemic. We continue to grow and provide fresh fruits and vegetables to anyone who needs it in Albany County. We are serving well over 3,000 unduplicated individuals every year. Over 600 people a week come to that building to pick up fresh fruits and vegetables whenever they need them. We deliver over 125 a week. And since then, we're also continuing to move forward with that as our base. We've launched a mobile market that's getting farther out into the frontier and rural areas in Albany County. And we're partnering with Ivinson Memorial Hospital to begin the first on-site food hub in Albany County. So lots happening, but it all comes back to the building, and there are all these great numbers, and I could give you more. But it's more the stories and the people. Every day, people walk into that building and immediately go down memory lane and say, I remember this. I remember coming to visit the owl at the museum. I remember doing pottery when it was Parks and Rec. That pottery room is now an indoor hydroponics growing room where we're growing food, and we just served people fresh lettuce 2 weeks ago that we grew in the middle of January here in Laramie, Wyoming. So it's been an extraordinary thing. It's an extraordinary building. Stop by any time. We did, for the 150th celebration, we did a huge research, and we have the story and photographs of the entire history of this building all around the walls of our main room, and you can drop by any time just to see that and enjoy it. It's the buildings has a history, and I like to think that she continues to grow and become more expansive and to serve the community better with every decade that goes by, and she's celebrating her 158th birthday this year. So thank you very much for allowing us to be part of that history, and for your generosity in providing lots of space and opportunity for the community to be served in these ways.
Thank you, Ms. Woodson. Councilor Gabriel.
Gail, I was curious, where was the building originally before it was moved to Labonte?
So it was Fort Sanders. So that was all of Fort Sanders, and it was one of the buildings. Lore has it that this particular building was a barracks was a barracks. And then it went to, from there, when they dismantled the fort, which was just 16 years after it was built, it moved to downtown Laramie, and it was Sheriff Boswell's home for quite some time. And then the Methodist Church bought it from Boswell as he aged, and they moved it to another location in downtown Laramie. And then in 1966, it was moved to Labonte Park and became Parks and Rec. And that was the stipulation of the city council, like, yeah, we'll keep it, but we want to put it where we can keep an eye on it, and it's beautiful. I've never had such a beautiful office in my whole life. Just what we look at, the first thing we did when we moved there, of course, was we tore out all the grass and started growing food, and beautiful gardens there. And it's just an amazingly beautiful place. And of course, we also do summer lunch programs there, and people come by and use it for all kinds of things, and we continue to have more ideas for it, so it's great.
Thank you, Councilor. Any other questions? Councilor Doherty, please.
I just have a comment. I just want to thank you for your resourcefulness, and I love that you have the summer food program for kids, so thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Anyone else? Okay, we'll go to the public on this item. If there's any member of the public that wishes to speak to this item, go ahead and raise your hand if you're on Zoom, or come forward in the room. Seeing none, we're going to close the public comment period. Back to the council for any comments before we move on to the vote. I would just say my daughter is a gigantic fan of your fairy garden. It inspired a fairy garden at our house after.
Wonderful. We need all the fairies we can get in the world today.
Is far more robust than ours. More fairies live at your place.
Well, great. Well, tell her to come by and give us some more tips.
She'll be pleased.
Wonderful.
All right. City Clerk, please call the roll.
Gabriel,
Yes.
Somerville,
Yes.
Newman,
Yes.
Shumway,
Yes.
O'Doherty,
Yes.
Richardson,
Yes.
Pierce,
Yes.
Cumby,
Yes.
Harrington.
Yes.
That is 9 yeses and 0 nos.
Thank you, City Clerk. That item has been approved. We will move on to item 14, Vice Mayor Cumby.
I move to approve the Memorandum of Understanding between the Board of County Commissioners of Albany County, Wyoming, by and through the Albany County Court Supervised Treatment Program and the City of Laramie, Wyoming, for adult diversion services, and authorize the mayor and clerk to sign.
Second.
Motion by Cumby, second by O'Doherty. City Attorney.
Mayor and council, so tonight with this item and the next item, we are implementing a process that this council got underway last May, I believe, at the beginning of last summer. That was when the county and the city agreed to support the grant application by the Albany County Court Supervised Treatment Program, which you heard about from Kevin Lamb not too long ago. The grant application to the federal government for a $1.2 million grant for a diversion program in this county for people who have been charged with misdemeanors. The county and the city agreed to support that program and promised that, I got to get my numbers right, the city and county would split 25% of that total amount. 25% of $1.2 million is $300,000. County and city agreed that we would each contribute $150,000 over 4 years, and that's what this MOU implements. We will pay $37,500 a year over starting this year and for the next 3 years. This MOU outlines the bare bones agreement as to what the Albany County Court Supervised Treatment Program will do. They will run these diversion services, and they will run them. We will not, the county will not. The county, the county prosecutor doesn't run it, the other county officials don't run it. The Court Supervised Treatment Program will run it, communicate with us, evaluate our people, take people from circuit court and from municipal court, and run them through the diversion program. Any questions?
Thank you, City Attorney. Council members, any questions? Okay. Thank you. Seeing no questions, we'll move to the public on this. If there's any member of the public that wishes to speak to this item, go ahead and raise your hand on Zoom or come forward if you're in the room. Seeing, oh, please. Yeah, Ms. Fine, come forward. Despite us knowing your name, give us your name for the record. You'll have 3 minutes.
Linda Devine. I'm a citizen here of Laramie, also a criminal defense attorney. I practice both in municipal court and county court. I really support the diversion program. I appreciate Ms. Carter being here. I have a lot of respect for her. I do have some questions on the specific ordinance piece, and I can wait and visit with you on that. I appreciate the amount of time and work that's been put into it. My biggest concern is that what's going on in each court is uniform. I don't want two systems of justice to occur. Y'all know I've been advocating for this kind of a program for years, and the city attorney's hands were tied, and I appreciate that she's been working under your direction to get something going, but I hope that we can go through, and some of these I don't know it could be mandated by the grant, and so there's just some things I'm not sure about. But I hope that we'll be able to go through it and deal with that. But first and foremost, I appreciate that y'all are doing this, you're getting the ball rolling, and I look forward to working with anybody that's going to be doing this, so thank you so much.
Thank you, Ms. Devine. Any other members of the public wishing to speak on this item? Seeing none, we'll close the public comment period. Back to the council for any last comments before the vote. Okay, City Clerk, please call the roll.
Newman,
Yes.
Pierce,
Yes.
Shumway,
Yes.
Gabriel,
Yes.
O'Doherty,
Yes.
Richardson,
Yes.
Somerville,
Yes.
Cumby,
Yes.
and Harrington.
Yes.
That is 9 yeses and 0 no, Your Honor.
Thank you, City Clerk. That item has been approved. Item 15, Vice Mayor Cumby.
I move to approve on first reading original ordinance number 2081, adding section 9.13 to Laramie Municipal Code, providing certain persons charged in municipal court to qualify for a diversion program.
Second.
Motion by Cumby, second by Newman. Ms. Alston-Bileski. Welcome.
Thank you, Honorable Mayor, Council. Obviously, Mr. Southard just handled kind of the financial. This is, I guess, now the practical piece of this. It's been several months of meetings that I've had, Mr. Southard's been part of, with both the Albany County Attorney's Office has been involved, Judge Wynn has been involved in several of those meetings, various members of the municipal court staff. And so this ordinance is kind of the culmination of kind of all of those meetings with various community partners to ensure that we have a fair and a good process whereby people appear before the court, plead guilty, accept responsibility, and are sent into diversion, so that we have a chance in this community to kind of address those underlying behaviors that led to whatever got them in front of the court before, hopefully as a benefit to the community, and then the benefit to the individual, obviously, is the charges are eventually dismissed. And so I think this ordinance is, like I said, a result of a lot of meetings, a lot of work, a lot of people reviewing and drafting. I think that this will, provide a good avenue and resource for people coming before municipal court to address whatever behavior got them there, and to benefit essentially in the outcome that there have been no convictions or convictions. It will kind of wipe everything away stemming from that one single incident. Obviously, it's a new program. I think there's probably going to be some growing pains along the way. I think the grant requires there to be some monitoring and things along the way. So hopefully in maybe 6 to 9 months, I'm before you on some changes and good news and things that we can do better. But we are, I think, just trying to put our best foot forward and get this program kind of up and running. I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have, and I will note that Shanda Doherty, who's actually the diversion coordinator for this specific program, is present, as well as Heather Carter, who is the director of the Albany County Court Supervised Treatment Program. So whereas it relates to questions maybe for the grant or the actual program, I think they are also going to be very appropriate resources to answer those questions. But as for kind of, I guess, the process in municipal court, I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Thank you. Council members, any questions? Councilor Richardson, please.
I have a question just on the process side of things, kind of alluding to what Linda had brought forth earlier. Just checking to make sure, so if this is a separate process from the county, clearly from what Mr. Southard told us, but are the ways that people enter into the system and are able to go through the diversion process the same too? Does that make sense? Is my question making sense?
Councilor Richardson, I think maybe I understand. Let me answer what I think I understand, great. And if I miss the question, let me know.
Okay.
The crux of the program is the same no matter what court you go through. So you are going to have the program itself is going to determine basically why you're there, what kind of referrals and resources you might need, if that would include alcohol or drug testing or not, if that would include restitution or not. And so those pieces will be determined by the program, and I think consistent. Now, it's going to be individualized for everybody based on how they came through the system into this program, but that program will determine their individual need, and that process will be the same through the program. Whether they, it's my understanding at least that in both circuit court and municipal court, an appearance before the court will be required either way.
Okay. Nate, do you follow up on that?
I don't know if that answered.
No, I think that was part of it. One thing that I would just like to know a little bit more about, the last sentence of this says that successful completion of the diversion program will result in full dismissal of charges that led to participation in the diversion program. Can you talk to me about how, let me rewind again. From my perspective, I see this as an opportunity for someone to, they made one kind of dumb decision. Let's go through this, go through the program, learn, grow, move on, sort of thing. How does it work in terms of, if someone's in this program for a full year, and what does that look like in terms of their charges? Does that go on a record? Will that go against them being able to get a job if that is sticking with, I guess that's my question. Does that make sense? Is it cleared, if it's cleared at the end and it's not going on their record, that's great. But if it's on their record this whole time and then they're struggling to get a job or get a house or get a rental, I don't know how that works. Could you explain that?
Yes, so Honorable Mayor, Council Richardson, I think there are a couple of different answers to your question. What goes on a criminal history can depend on what type of criminal history is pulled. How it's pulled, and whether or not that person was issued citations or actually arrested and taken into a secure facility and fingerprinted. So it can be very different based on the circumstances that happen before they even end up in front of a court or in front of a judge. The charges will be dismissed, and they're dismissed with prejudice if they successfully complete, and so that means they're dismissed forever, and any history would show that they were dismissed. I think what you're asking is, would they be expunged? They would not be automatically expunged under this program. There is a law on expungements, but that is not part and parcel with this, because that's a state law that has kind of its own rules to it, if that helps.
Yes, thank you.
And by way of a clarification, they are expunged at the completion, not expunged, sorry, they are dismissed following the completion of the program, not when they enter the program, correct?
Mayor, that is correct.
Okay,
yes.
Thank you. You have a follow-up on that?
Yes.
I'm going to go to the Vice Mayor and then to Councilor Pierce.
We can go to Pierce first.
Okay, go
It's
ahead.
just quick. How long does it take? How long does that take? Well, how much time? So they're in the program for a year. We have a dismissal, and then to actually show up on their record, how long does that take?
Councilor Pierce, how long does which portion take? Like the diversion program or the dismissal? So the diversion program length will be determined by the program itself.
Right.
So that is completely up to the program. I won't have any say, Judge Wynn won't have any say, completely up to the program. The dismissal will come immediately when I'm notified. So-and-so has successfully completed, here's the letter, the email, or however the diversion coordinator determines to notify me, and dismissals will be filed.
Okay, thank you.
Vice Mayor.
Thank you. First, I want to thank you and our city attorney, and Heather, for all the work you've done on this. My question is, for the person to enter into diversion program, they then plead guilty as charged. Then they go into the diversion program. So my question is, this guilty plea, for the time that they're in the program, is that a public record plea, that they have pleaded guilty for DUI and And then after a year, they've done well, they've gone through the program with flying colors, and now it's going to go through the process. During that year that they might be in treatment, are they publicly known as a conviction? And might that, I'll give you the whole thing, might that influence someone's ability to rent an apartment, to get a job, to get clearance to work with vulnerable populations, et cetera? So does that guilty remain active and open to the public during that time?
So Vice Mayor Cumbie, I'm trying to parcel out, because there's a few different things there. So Laramie Municipal Court is a court of record. So what we do in this room when we are in court is of public record, yes. There are no convictions that would result from this. So it's my understanding, at least, and I'm happy to have Ms. Doherty kind of address this as well, is that this program is designed for people who recognize that I made a mistake, I have some behaviors that need addressing, and I want to take responsibility, I want to address those behaviors. And so, yes, they are pleading guilty, and that's kind of hanging out there until the dismissal is filed, but it's part of that. I'm acknowledging what happened, I'm acknowledging my part, my responsibility, and I'm wanting to and address whatever needs to be addressed in order to ensure that this is a one-off, essentially.
So just to clarify, I think I understand you, and that was very helpful. They may be pleading guilty, but they are not convicted. So then, the question, have you been convicted of? No. They can say that unless they fail to complete the program. If they fail to complete the program, then their plea becomes a conviction.
Yes, so once I'm notified, yes, they'll come back and be sentenced by the court because they've already pled guilty. And at that point, once the court enters the guilty plea and sentences, they are convicted.
Okay.
If they complete the program, they are never convicted.
Thank you, that was helpful.
You said that much more eloquently.
Councilor Gabriel?
Thanks, Mayor. Holly, my question is dealing with all defendants are eligible for consideration other than DUI defendants due to Wyoming statutory requirements. Is that because there are other programs for DUI?
Councilor Gabriel, yes and no. There are other available programs specific to DUIs, but the statute on DUI actually says that a prosecutor cannot either reduce or dismiss a DUI charge unless I can tell the court facts under oath to prove that there are insufficient facts to prove that charge. And so if this person's pleading guilty and the court's finding there's a sufficient guilty plea, there's sufficient facts. So that charge can't come back and me dismiss it under the direct language of the ordinance. But there are first offender and other programs that are available for DUIs.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor. Councilor Richardson, please.
One more question. So I see in here that the treatment may be delivered through e-learning. And so, which is great. But then later in the ordinance, it talks about you must live here. If you start the program while living in Albany County but then move, you may no longer continue the program. Is that part of the federal grant, or could that still be offered since we have the e-learning available?
I think that's probably more appropriate for Ms. Carter. Okay. I will.
Welcome, Ms. Carter. Thank you for being here.
Honorable Mayor, councilors, with the e-learning, that would be something that would be, say we have somebody that comes in with a education level requirement for treatment, a DUI class or something like that, versus having to wait here for the next one that might be next month. We do have an e-learning option. And our hope is in those kind of situations, that would be somebody that could complete that e-learning and be done within 30 days. If that's on the low end of needs, if they came in at that could be something that we could knock out right away with the e-learning option, and then they could be discharged and be able to move. If they're recommended for a higher level of counseling, an individual counseling, or like an IOP level, something like that, that would more than likely entail in-person counseling. We do not have an e-learning platform that would give higher than an education level at this point. Our hope is eventually to be able to expand to that, and that could be something that Holly said, in 6 to 9 months we might be able to revisit that. For right now, it would be more on the education side, which then would have them eligible to be done sooner once that requirement is complete.
Can I follow up with that then? So then, let's see, it was just that in the ordinance, maybe we say something that if would it be possible to say if someone has started their e-learning and is only receiving the education part of this, and let's say needed to move within 15 days, could we then have them complete it? As it stands, it sounds like they couldn't.
We certainly could put that in as an option. Our goal is not to keep somebody here if they don't have to be here. We had a carryover case from the prior TAEA program that the county had, and she wants to move for a job, and so we set her up with the e-learning, and so absolutely that's something that we can look at depending on that level of recommendation.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Counselor. Appreciate that.
Thank you.
Any other questions, council members? I have a question about capacity. When you look at section F, I mean, that is, I assume, Ms. Carter, for you, this is a significant amount of work, and I suppose you take great pride in your job and do these things all really well. And so I wonder about how many people can be served by this diversion program at a time, and how you sort of structure that, because you could envision a situation in which, like, maybe there's a particularly rowdy New Year's Eve, and on January 1st the program is full, right? And then
Absolutely.
You would just hope you had gotten in trouble first, right?
Right.
So
Fair.
I'm curious how you navigate that.
So our plan, and this has been something that we have a technical assistance through BJA, our funders, and so this is something that we have been talking with them about as well, monitoring that. First off, I would say our plan going into this and going forward is that we will have a 50-50 caseload from county to city. So we will have equal opportunity, that we would have county spots versus city slots. So with that being said, our plan going in and our goal coming in, and this is hard to explain, I'm sorry, bear with me. When I wrote the grant application, we set our year one caseload at 20 participants. And that number was based off of having more high need participants. So if we have somebody that comes in that, 10 of those 20 people need intensive outpatient treatment, they're gonna have more services. More of this is going to apply than we had 20 who had an education level and they needed to knock out an 8-hour class and they would be done. And so some of it is going to be kind of balancing what the services are that we are referring people to, the level of need of people that we are working with. And then lastly, I would say, with the population that we anticipate that we'll be working with, I do see us realistically serving probably about 50 participants at a time. That sounds high based off of 20. I could see it being more, but I don't want to set unrealistic expectations. But if we're really doing a good job of screening at the front end for a lower risk of reoffense and just identifying those needs, then 50 to 60 would be an average caseload that we would be able to serve.
Okay.
And then, of course, our opportunity to grow going forward. If this is a big success, we have the option of looking at our funding next year with our grant, and we might bring on a case manager. So our hope is to grow this, and that this will be a good option before somebody gets to probation, before somebody gets to drug court.
Yeah, I appreciate that. And I'm wondering if you happen to know what you expect the need in the community is as sort of like a, I know that this will be, not enough, right? As you mentioned, a need to grow, but I don't have any concept for what the need is.
Absolutely, and needs that we will screen for. That's part of we have a fancy risk needs screening tool. And so the needs that we screen for are going to be substance abuse. So if there is substance abuse need, if that is a factor based off of our assessment, then we can refer somebody and then pay for the substance abuse evaluation, which causes a lot of roadblocks for people who don't have insurance, don't know how to navigate that system. So substance abuse, education and employment. So that is a need that we look at. If somebody is a high need in that, they want help getting their GED. They need plugged into those resources. They want to go back to school. They're not able to work because of whatever barriers, whether it's transportation, could be substance use, child care. Those are the things that we would work with them to identify. So substance abuse, education, leisure and recreation, people that have a lot of downtime tend to get into more shenanigans. And so us being able to identify with them what pro-social is for them, who are pro-social people that they would be hanging out with. If that means they're plugged into, they join the basketball league or something like that to get things going. It's really just kind of finding out those interests. We also look at pro-criminal attitudes as well as antisocial attitudes. If somebody flags high need for those, then that would be more on the counseling end of things, figuring out why they are engaging in criminal thinking, in that behavior, giving them different tools if they're faced with stressors instead of, shoplifting. We will look at other options. Part of that is an education piece. Some of the education pieces we have breakdown specific to shoplifting, check fraud, some of those money crimes that aren't really captured in any other sort of treatment resource. So those are about the big 6 needs that we look at for individuals that we work with. And then, of course, with those needs are the barriers. As I mentioned, childcare, transportation, access to health care, those kind of things. And that's another layer of the case management that Shanda and myself, and hopefully eventually a case manager, will be providing to people and really just kind of navigating the system.
Great. Yeah, thank you. I appreciate that bigger picture, sort of holistic approach you all are taking to this. I think that's really meaningful. And then I am a little bit curious on the time frame after, obviously this will have more than just tonight's reading. What's the time frame for this program being up and running after this council in its wisdom approves it?
Our hope is after final reading, we will be able to set a start date. I would love to say March 15th, we would go live, but we're ready to go. In navigating with the county attorney's office, we will hopefully be able to go live on a couple cases there. We have the luxury in city of having the ordinance and those kind of things where that's not available on the county side. And so that is part of all of the speed in which we could do county a little bit sooner. But really March 15th, I would love to be able to go live.
Sure.
Yeah, sorry. I
No, that's
forgot
great.
what I was going to say.
Yeah, that's great. It's sufficient, for sure. I appreciate it. I was looking for sort of just a general idea, so that's helpful. Council members, any other questions? Okay. Well, anything else from staff on this? Okay, thank you both. We'll go to the public on this. If there's any member of the public wishing to speak to this item, go ahead and come forward in the room. Ms. Devine? You can raise your hand if you're on Zoom as well. It'll put you in the queue.
Mr. Mayor, Council, again, my name's Linda Devine, Laramie resident. First, I want to say I do not want to delay this process at all. I hope we get through the first reading and it's passed, but I just want to make sure that we get it right the first time. And so a couple of things that I jotted some notes down, and good God. We were talking, and I think it was you, Madam Vice Mayor, that asked about the guilty plea and how long that would be out there. And again, I have not seen how the county is doing it, but I've talked to some of the prosecutors. My understanding through the county is they don't go in front of a judge. Everything is handled between the prosecutor and you know what I'm talking about, diversion court, okay? So when we talked about, Ms. Hostmalaski talked about it, so this is a court of record, so that guilty plea in front of a judge would be on there, it's public record. The way that it's being done in the county is that there's never a guilty plea filed. What happens in the county is there's a contract written between the county attorney and the defendant, and if they have an attorney that reviews it with them, they do admit to the guilt, they do take responsibility, and but they dismiss it up front, and if they haven't violated, if everything's done, they're successful, everything's already done. They don't have to go back into court. So that's one of my big concerns, is someone coming forward, they are saying in public, I am guilty, and while this case is pending and you're applying for jobs, one of the questions sometimes is, have you ever pled guilty to any offense? And they will have to say yes. The way that it's being done through the county attorney's office, and this is just how they've done it, and I practice in both courts, and I just want it to be uniform. If county attorney wants to do it the way the city municipal court wants to do it, that's fine. I just want it to be uniform. But there's no actual plea of guilty that's entered into on the record. And so I think that's a key difference. I think it's a key difference to have it dismissed up front. You know, they get into the diversion program and it's dismissed up front. So those are just some of my big concerns. I have a couple of other questions. And this is, I just want to protect their rights. And on the ordinance, I did have all this, because on page 2 of it, on the, am I past, can I keep talking?
Yeah, with brevity.
Okay. I want to make sure that we get this right. So if you go to B, and it's number 3, that they have to decide within 45 days if they want to be considered. I have some issues with that, because I think it's important that, one, that they receive any evidence that could be out there, because I don't want people waiving their right to possible constitutional violations just to get into the diversion program. I want to make sure that folks' rights are still being upheld. I want to make sure that all of a sudden everybody's going into the diversion program, and so we can just start violating the Fourth Amendment anytime we want. Not that that's happened, but I think it's something that we really need to think about. I'm happy to email y'all with my other thoughts if you don't want me to keep going.
Sure. Yeah, that sounds great, and we'll just consider them for second reading. Okay. Yeah.
All right, thank you.
Appreciate you. Any other members of the public wishing to speak to this item? Seeing none, I'm going to close the public comment period. Back to the council. Councilor Newman, please.
Just have a comment, and I've made this comment before, but I wanted to make it again. Diversion programs work. I was a young 18-year-old and had to go through this process, and I think without the diversion program, my life would be so much different than it is right now. So I urge the council to vote yes on this.
Thank you, Councilor. Any other comments, council? Councilor Richardson, please.
I think I just am still feeling fuzzy as to the process of how the county versus the city does it. And if there's a way to either now or next meeting get clarification from Bob or Holly about what that looks like so we're all on the same page, that would be great.
City Attorney, what's your preference? You want to bring it for second reading or now? Any clarity there?
Yeah, we'll do whatever council wants. It's the same thing.
Okay.
In fact, the county attorney earlier today, knowing that this was apparently an issue, said and that they would run it the same as we run it then. We'll put them in front of a judge and have them plead guilty. If that's an issue, they'll do that. We don't know any other way to do this other than folks step up, take responsibility, plead guilty, and then they don't get convicted. So it will be done, says the county attorney, the same as the city has it in this ordinance, if that's what the city wants.
Great, thank you for the clarification.
Yeah.
Appreciate it. Oh,
Please, come forward.
I'm sorry.
No, you're fine. No need to apologize.
I would also just make a quick note from my communications with the county attorney's office. Every person, a participant, would appear in front of the judge. We have to do that to protect their rights and have that initial appearance and have them do an understanding of their rights so that is on record. And then there will also be in circuit court a written plea that would be filed. Now, if they appear in front of Judge Sanford or not, I don't know about the appearance, but it would be filed there. And then yes, City Attorney Southern just said, in talking with the county attorney, they would consider modifying their process where it would be similar, so that things were on the same page. Sorry.
Thank you. No, that's very helpful. Okay, Councilor Newman.
So I had a comment about that, going in front of a judge. I think that was part of it that helped me, was like, I did this, and I had to go, I finished my diversion program, and I think it was set for 6 months, but I finished it in 8, because I slacked off and didn't want to do some of the stuff. And they gave me the one continuance that Kansas allows, but did I have to check that little box that said, yep, did I plead guilty? Yeah. Did I do it? Absolutely. Right? So I think the accountability on the person going through it needs to be looked at as well. And that's just something that I knew, I got to check this box, but in 6 or 8 months or a year, I don't have to now. So that's kind of something to think about as well.
Thank you, Councilor. You have not been late to anything since, I suspect, knowing you that well.
Absolutely not.
All right. Anything else, council members? Okay. Councilor Doherty, please.
So what's not clear to me, so this is already happening in the county, is that right? This has already started. Okay. So, it has not been started. And so, can I make a comment?
Please.
Just thank you for the grant writers and all the clever people putting this together. I really appreciate all the thought that went into it. It sounds way more complicated than I could deal with. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Doherty. That is a great point. People's lives get better when their governments work together, don't they? And so, yeah, thanks to the folks at the county. Thanks to you both, City Attorney's Office. Thank you, guys. All right, City Clerk, please call the roll.
Okay. O'Doherty?
Yes.
Gabriel?
Yes.
Somerville?
Yes.
Pierce?
Yes.
Newman?
Yes.
Shumway,
Yes.
Richardson,
Yes.
Cumby,
Yes.
Harrington.
Yes.
That is 9 yeses and 0 no, Your Honor.
Thank you, City Clerk. That item has been approved on first reading. Councilor Gabriel, item 16.
Thank you, Mayor. I move to approve first reading of original ordinance number 2082, amending Chapter 13.48.010 of the Laramie Municipal Code to regulate water rates in the city of Laramie.
Second.
Motion by Gabriel, second by Richardson. Director Webb, please.
Mayor, was that water rates or wastewater rates? I thought I heard you say water, but I think we're on wastewater.
We're on wastewater. Councilor Gabriel?
Yes, I think I did. I meant to say wastewater rates in the city of Laramie.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Great. Does that work for you, City Clerk? We'll just call it a misread.
Yes.
Director Webb, thank you for pointing that out so we don't get off the rails.
You bet. Honorable Mayor, City Council, you probably recall, 2 weeks ago, we had a work session with our financial consultant, Raf Tillis. I think they're on Zoom tonight. Todd Cristiano and London Harrelson are on Zoom to help us with some questions if you have them. What you see here tonight in the ordinance should be no surprise. The numbers are exactly the same as what we showed you at the work session. 5% increase is what we're recommending in the wastewater fund. Just for a comparison, that gives a proposed rate of $1.64 per month increase on the average residential water bill. I did want to circle back. I think it was Councilor Pierce who had a question last time on why we were just doing the 1 year, which is kind of out of normal for us. Usually we do a 2-year rate. During the pandemic years, we had a hold there for a couple of years on rates. And so this year is what I'm kind of calling a stutter step to get us back in line with the biennium budget and that process. So this gets us through the year, and then that would, in June, when you approve the biennium budget, we're going to do that deeper dive with Raf Tillis and come back probably a year from now with that 2-year rate. So it gets us back on our schedule with the biennium budget. Again, I think Todd and London are on Zoom. Are they still on there? London's on there? Okay. And then I think I saw Deputy Director Wade hiding in the back too, who does the heavy lifting on our long-term financial plan for the fund.
Thank you. Council members, any questions? Okay. We'll go to the public on this item. Any member of the public wishing to speak to this item can raise your hand on Zoom. Come forward if you are in the room. Seeing none, close public comment. Back to the council. Any comments before the vote? Okay. City Clerk, please call the roll.
Somerville,
Yes.
Gabriel,
Yes.
Shumway,
Yes.
Newman,
Yes.
Richardson,
Yes.
O'Doherty,
Yes.
Pierce,
Yes.
Cumby,
Yes.
and Harrington.
Yes.
That is 9 yeses and 0 nos.
Thank you, City Clerk. That item's been approved on first reading. Move on to item 17, Councilor Richardson.
Thank you. I move to approve first reading of original ordinance number 2083, amending Chapter 13.44.010 of the Laramie Municipal Code to regulate water rates in the city of Laramie.
Second.
Motion by Richardson, second by Pierce. Director Webb.
And Mayor, Council. So for the water rate, same thing, 5% is the recommendation. Result of $2.60 per month increase in the average residential water bill. Also at last meeting, I believe it was Councilor Shumway who asked about water breaks, and I included the chart in your council packet tonight. You can see that last year we were at about 40 water main breaks. The national average, according to the American Water Works Association, in our region, for a size similar to us, is 60 to 80 breaks per year. So we're doing pretty well there. You'll see where we had that big spike back in 2006, 2007. In 2008 and 2009 is when the city took on what you may have heard as the Red Oak Study. I know Councilor Shumway's heard of it because I was reading some documents and his name's all over them. And so that's when we did the big cost of service look and really put a long-term capital plan together as far as rehabilitation on the lines. And so then after that, you can see where those really start dropping when we started a lot of those rehabilitation projects. So I wanted to bring that back to you. So with that, if you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer them. And again, I think we got London and Director Wade Wilson.
Thank you. Councilor Gabriel, please.
Brooks, what happened in 2017?
Yeah, Councilor Gabriel, through you, Mayor. This is a great question. We were talking about that in the office, and the only thing we can come up with was it was something to do with weather that year. Maybe there was a super hard freeze or something like that. Don't know for sure.
Okay.
Thank you, Councilor. Any other questions, council members? Okay, we'll go to the public. Any members of the public wishing to speak to this item, go ahead and raise your hand on Zoom. Come forward if you're in the room. Seeing no public comments, back to the council for comment before the vote. Councilor Shumway, thank you for, pun intended, carrying the water back there and turning this graph around. City Clerk, you can call the roll.
Gabriel?
Yes.
Newman?
Yes.
O'Doherty?
Yes.
Pierce?
Yes.
Richardson?
Yes.
Shumway?
Yes.
Somerville?
Yes.
Cumby?
Yes.
And Harrington.
Yes.
That is 9 yeses and 0 nos.
Thank you, City Clerk. That item is passed first reading. We'll move on to item 18. Councilor Shumway.
Thank you, Your Honor. I would move to approve original ordinance number 2080, amending Title II of the Laramie Municipal Code on second reading to establish the rate of pay for the governing body.
Second.
Motion by Shumway, second by Gabriel. City Manager, please.
Thank you, Mayor. Council, as you know, this ordinance is on second reading this evening. You will note that we have made a couple additional recommendations for you. Just as a matter of recap on first reading, I did remind the council that our organization has been going through a compensation review over the last year. As part of that review, the Human Resource Director and I took a look at what other elected officials in manager council forms of government in Wyoming are receiving in terms of compensation for the time that you all serve. Patty's here tonight as well and can answer any questions you might have for the Human Resource Director, but in general what we found is that the rate of pay for you as elected officials really isn't keeping pace with other similar communities in Wyoming. And so with that in mind, we brought this forward as a matter of just adjusting your pay like we are doing for all staff to align it with similar situated communities. As you know, it has been a long time. 2008 is the last time that City Council adjusted your rate of pay. What we're recommending to bring you in line is that you would move to $150 per official meeting, and the mayor receiving twice that, which is allowed under statute, so $300 per meeting for the mayor as the presiding officer. Your travel expenses would continue to be reimbursed for WHAM and NLC meetings and any subcommittees associated with those bodies. And then you would also still be able to receive reimbursement for attendance at other meetings of state government type functions and any other meeting that the council would approve that might be out of the norm, so to speak, of WHAM, NLC, and state government meetings. I'm also recommending that council would be able to be reimbursed for expenses similar to all other city employees. So that would include a mileage or vehicle reimbursement for miles traveled to attend meetings and conduct official city business. Councilors would be eligible for mobile data communication reimbursement, which is basically using a smartphone or other device to access your email, text messages, those sorts of communications, and also be eligible for continuing education, which would be tuition reimbursement for accredited courses that would be related to municipal government through our cooperative agreement with the Albany County campus of Laramie County Community College. And then also, I'm recommending that counselors become eligible for all the elective programs of the city. Elective programs are programs that city staff may subscribe to, but if they choose to subscribe, they pay the full cost of those elective programs. So the city does not contribute, but we make those programs available to our staff members. I'm recommending council would have those programs available to you as well. And there's a handful of them. They include our mental health assistance program, our 457 deferred compensation Roth, our IRA, and a handful of others that are denoted in the cover sheet. So that's the quick synopsis. I would mention as well that we are asking tonight that if you so choose that you amend Section 2 of this ordinance. As you know, I told you at the last meeting that we are recommending that we make the ordinance effective on January 1st of 2025. That notation was not included in first reading of your ordinance. So if you'd like to amend it to read as such, we have suggested an amendment for you there at the top of your cover sheet. And with that, I stand for any questions.
Thank you, City Manager. Council members, any questions? I may just ask, anybody interested in moving that amendment? Councilor Gabriel, please. Richardson.
I would, recommend to change the amendment to include, to make this ordinance effective on January 1st, 2025.
Is there a second?
Second.
Motion by Richardson, second by Gabriel. Council members, any discussion on the amendment? Members of the public, you're welcome to comment on the amendments. If you have any comments specific to the amendment at this point. Okay, great. We'll come right back to you, though. All right. Anyone else from the public wishing to speak just to the amendment? All right, City Clerk, please call the roll.
Pierce?
Yes.
Richardson?
Yes.
Gabriel?
Yes.
Newman?
Yes.
O'Doherty?
Yes.
Somerville? Somerville?
Let's call her excused. City Clerk.
Absent. Shumway?
Yes.
Cumby?
Yes.
And Harrington.
Yes.
That is 8 yeses, 0 no, 1 absent.
Thank you, City Clerk. The amendment has been adopted. Back to the council. Any questions before we go to the public?
I've got an amendment.
Oh, please. Councilor Pierce.
Yeah, my amendment would be to move the mayor's salary from the suggested 300 down to 200.
Second.
Okay, motion by Pierce, second by Newman. Council members, any discussion there?
I guess my reasoning, current mayor aside, and the one
I will take
sitting-
none of this personal.
and the one sitting to my other side, former, we all get one vote, right? And to me, that suggests a very similar amount of pay. And we all do then have different responsibilities based on the committees that we serve. The mayor does or should be attending the agenda review meeting and potentially, cutting the ribbon at something. But running the meeting is extra, right? I mean, we all get to say something when it's our turn, but the mayor does have that extra responsibility of running the meeting, and that's what the people see. And that is not an easy job. I just don't necessarily think it's worth twice the money. I think it's worth a little bit more, $50, $75 or something, but I don't necessarily think it's worth twice the money. So, and that's just my personal opinion on the matter, because they also do a lot of other things that the public doesn't see. But from the public's view, I feel like, just a $50 bump, like an extra hour, if we go 6 to 9, $50 an hour, an extra hour's worth of pay. So that's just my opinion, for whatever it's worth.
Thank you, Counselor. Anybody else? Counselor Newman?
So I was going to make kind of the same motion for some of the same reasons. But one of the other ones that I wanted to mention was we still don't know about staff salaries and that compensation. And I know we wanted to separate them, but to me, they're still the same. And I think this would be an okay thing to kind of discuss and think about before we give city staff like recommendations for theirs.
Sure. Thank you. Council members, anything else? Councilor Gabriel?
And just to the point that Councilor Pierce made, I think when the mayor has to go to the agenda meetings, the ribbon cuttings, the talking with the city manager, whatever it might be, talking to the public because that person is the mayor, it seems to me the meeting part is just a small fraction of the responsibilities of the mayor. And so it's, I can understand where you're coming from, but I still think the 300 is certainly plausible for the mayor position.
Thank you, Councilor. Any other council members? Councilor Doherty?
I'd like to hear from another former mayor, what he thinks about it.
Councilor Shumway, please.
I've been volunteered. Let me just review a little bit of history first of all. The first term as mayor, I was paid $10 per meeting for 2 meetings, so it was $20 a month. And then over the years, it has increased. I have never looked at the city council as a source of revenue for any of the people that I've served with. It's just something that compensates them for incidental needs such as babysitting and inconvenience and this and that and the other. My recollection as being mayor is I probably spent twice as much time with city business, not only the extra meetings, but also signing documents and receiving phone calls that go to the mayor and such. I personally don't see a real scramble for someone to be mayor because it's something that is a huge responsibility with very, something that's not overcompensated. So I don't know that I would support this amendment. I would support it as originally stated that the mayor should be paid twice as much. And so I think I'm going to vote no on this. Not that I'll ever, I'll tell you this, I'll never be mayor again, so I'll never receive anything more than the city council. I can't say that I won't be on the city council again, but I really believe that a mayor, and I've seen many mayors that have gone far beyond doubling the effort that goes into what we regularly do as city council members. So I support the idea that there's an increase, but I think I'm going to say no to this because I want it to stay as originally recommended.
Thank you, Councilor. Councilor Richardson.
Do we have an update, Janine, on where salary studies are for the staff?
Yeah. Council, thank you for giving me the chance, Mayor, to address this. As I mentioned, I guess a few meetings ago, Council, you approved the reserve to implement the salary study findings in the budget that took effect July 1st. Salary studies in, findings are in, staff have been notified of their adjustment, and we are ready to make those adjustments with the February payroll. So there's no action that council need take beyond the reserve that you all appropriated for this fiscal year so that we could implement the findings. If you would like some more information, I'm happy to come. We could, provide a work session overview or something, but there's no action you will need to take beyond what you've already done. The staff have received their notice and will have their adjustments in next payroll.
Thank you, City Manager. One of the things I'd been mulling over in that conversation was we know the amount, right? Like we know ballpark the amount that this is going to end up totaling because of the budgeting process for it. So,
Mayor, can I clarify? You
please.
mean the adjustment for council?
Sorry, no, I mean for staff. I mean specifically for staff. We know, we don't know the exact dollar amount.
Right.
But we know, we're going to know that ballpark amount because we budgeted it.
Yeah,
right? So-
absolutely. And I should mention as well, speaking to this item on the agenda, you did also budget a reserve to make adjustments to your salary. We didn't know at that time, Patty had not completed the research, talking to other cities in the state, but we intended to do the research. So you did appropriate a reserve to fund an adjustment to city council salaries as well. So I would point out that that also was contemplated in the budget and money set aside. So if you choose to make this adjustment, I don't believe you will need a budget amendment. It should be covered under the reserve, I think.
Thanks, City Manager.
Thank you. That makes me feel better about voting on this item, knowing that that has been moved forward on that side of things. Thank you.
Thank you, Counselor. Any other questions, comments, Counselors? I would say only in the effort to make this not about me, because I appreciate you all speaking to it as in a bigger sense, because obviously it won't take effect until I am gone. But this job, having sat in both the seats, the mayor job is significantly more work. I sit in that role of sort of, and the mayor in general sits in that role of sort of like funneling staff's information to the council and funneling councilors' information back to staff. And that is not something the public sees. And certainly I get a significant assist from the vice mayor in those duties, and would argue if it were possible for an increase to the vice mayor's. But, you know, I know that there are differences in each mayor, but I would hope that in the times where the effort has not been put in, you know, maybe there would be more competition for the mayor's seat to keep that from happening. But, you know, I tend to think that this has been significantly harder. I don't know that I would want to do this again. But it's been significantly harder than being a council member, just time-wise. And it's sort of random times. It's like sort of 2 o'clock on a Thursday, you're going to get a call, and you might get a call at 8 the next day. It's sort of right when you're in the middle of something, a councilor calls, or a member of the public, or you have to go to something. And those all require childcare of some sort. And we all navigate those things ourselves, but it is a significant lift. So I don't support the amendment, but can appreciate the sentiment. Anyone else? Okay, we'll go to the public on the amendment. Okay, seeing no one in the public wishing to speak to it, we'll go back to the council before the vote. Okay, City Clerk, please call the roll.
Newman?
Yes.
Pierce?
Yes.
Richardson?
No. Oh, no.
Somerville?
No.
Shumway?
No.
Gabriel?
No.
O'Doherty?
No.
Cumby?
No.
And Harrington?
No.
That is 2 yeses and 7 no, Your Honor.
Thank you, City Clerk. The amendment has failed. Back to the main motion. Yeah, Councilor O'Doherty, please.
I think last time we voted on this, there were 2 counselors that were opposed to it, so I would be really curious, was it just the mayor, or was it the whole thing? I'd really like to hear what, well, actually, yeah, we did hear Councilor Newman. I think Councilor Pierce voted against it, and I think Councilor Somerville. So I would think for the sake of discussion, we ought to find out what your objection was. Thank you.
You certainly don't have to, but if you'd like to, you're welcome. Councilor O'Doherty is in a volunteering people mood. Councilor Richardson, if you'd like to.
I'm happy to talk about it a little more, and the city manager addressed it tonight. We had budgeted for something, but because we hadn't really seen any action at the staff level yet, I really hesitated to decide on something with us when no action other than we've budgeted for this thing, but nothing's moving forward. So just hearing tonight that, yes, we've moved forward, we're going to do this in February, I feel like the staff here do an excellent job. I do not think they're paid well enough. Maybe not well, yeah, salary study shows they were not paid well enough, so I just didn't want that to sound too blunt, but that's just what it was. And so knowing that there's movement and we are taking care of staff, the amount that we are voting for ourselves, which I have said the whole time is bizarre to me, but is really in the city's budget, pretty small. And when I think about the time that all of us dedicate to this, and thinking about the people that we want to dedicate to work on these issues in the future, compensating people for the work they're doing, I think, is really important generally. So that is, I will be voting yes tonight on this now, knowing those things.
Thank you, Counselor. Okay. Seeing no other folks taking that one up, I'm going to leave it there and ask if anyone else has any questions before we go to the public. Okay. Come on forward. If you have any other public comments, go ahead and raise your hand on Zoom. Come forward if you're in the room. But we'll just need your name. You'll have 3 minutes. And thanks for being here.
Mr. Mayor, City Council, my name is Jerry Gruber.
Thanks, sir.
Mr. Mayor, City Council, my name is Jerry Gruber. And in the first reading of this bill, I was pretty much in favor of it, okay? Until I started reading the Wyoming Governor Gordon's 25-26 proposed budget and some of the facts and figures that were in that proposed budget. What came out of that was 2 years ago, we had an $8.1 billion state budget. The governor wants to increase that to $10.8 billion. Okay, that's a different discussion. However, and also in that, the Wyoming has seen a median household income from 2018 to 2022 decrease by 2%. So the median income across Wyoming decreased by 2%. However, government employees' compensation packages increased by 30%. So a decrease of 2 to a plus of 30. That doesn't seem to go along very well. Plus, over a 10-year period of time in the state of Wyoming, the GDP has decreased by $2.4 billion. So now we have perception. How does it look if we have the city council voting for them to give them a pay increase and city staff an increase when city staff or staff across Wyoming has gone up 30%, yet the average household income has gone down by 2.2%. Perception is not good. I think we're coming into times within our country where times are going to get tough. They look pretty good right now. State's got a nice surplus. The county's got a nice surplus. I don't recall what the city of Laramie surplus is, but we're coming into tough times. So to obligate ourselves to big pay increases through the staff and through the city council, I don't think is the way to go. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Gruber, for taking time to join us this evening. Any other member of the public wishing to speak to this item? Seeing no further public comment, I'm going to close public comment back to the council before the vote. Okay. City Clerk, please call the roll.
Gabriel?
Yes.
Newman?
No.
O'Doherty?
Yes.
Pierce?
No.
Richardson?
Yes.
Shumway?
Yes.
Somerville?
No.
Cumbie?
Yes.
And Harrington?
Yes.
Okay, that is 6 yeses, 3 noes, Your Honor.
Thank you, City Clerk. That item has been approved on second reading. We'll move on to item 18A. Councilor Pierce.
Thank you, Mayor. I move to approve Resolution 2024-16, amending City Council Rules of Procedures 4.02A related to public comment at regular meetings to prevent public comments on non-agenda related items via web conferencing and authorize the mayor and clerk to sign.
Second.
Motion by Pierce, second by Vice Mayor Cumbie. Council members, this is something that I had asked to be brought forward. We've had a wave, I think we saw an attempt at it today, a wave of unproductive and hateful public comments leading off our meetings each week. And I think for a variety of reasons beyond sort of the violation of code of conduct, I think they also violate the YouTube terms of service, which we create content and put on there. They are, to me, they feel problematic in many ways. And this feels like a fairly small step. I would mention that public would still be able to comment at the end of our meetings via web conferencing if they would like in that final public comment period. We're talking specifically about the first public comment period. and asking folks that if they want to comment, please be here in the room for that first public comment period, or you are welcome to call council members or email us, of course, as always. Does anyone have any questions? Councilor Newman?
I have a question for the city attorney.
Please.
So the regular meetings, this is the document that we all received today. The number 4, it says public comment on non-agenda items, and so on and so forth. Couple years, and this could change, but let's walk with me. Couple years, I'm not on council anymore, and I want to come, or I want to zoom in. Obviously, I can't talk about non-agenda items in the very beginning. The way I read this, I can't do it in the second part either, because it clearly states public comments on non-agenda items. Well, the last one is public comments. Now, it doesn't specify on non-agenda or agenda, but can I talk about non-agenda items the last part of the meeting?
I've always thought that the last public comment at the end of the meeting was for non-agenda items also. Its title does not say that. Think it should, because I thought that when this was set up, and I was around when council set up its public speaking rules, that this was supposed to be non-agenda also, at the end.
And City Attorney, I have taken a similar approach. I have, while not titled as such, I have allowed any non-agenda item that fits within the code of conduct, of course, to happen in that period.
My only problem is I believe the way I read this is I cannot zoom in and anywhere in the meeting can I talk about non-agenda items.
And if you're still asking me, I think that's the way it was drafted.
Well, I think that's just my opinion, and I've seen lawsuits around the nation that's suppressing somebody who can't physically make it here, so handicap, whatever it is, from not talking to us through Zoom on non-agenda items.
Well, I mean, I think if your question is the legality, I am comfortable with the legality. We start from the proposition that there is no right for the public to comment in these meetings at all. And there's certainly no, well, of course, then, there's no obligation to allow comments on non-agenda items, again, at all. You, like almost all public bodies, allow comment on agenda items by the public. That's good. Most public bodies do it, but you don't have to. So within that universe, saying that non-agenda items, people have to either write you or show up in the service of really avoiding really foul, horrible things being said that restrict then the city's ability to even post our proceedings on social media. I think within that whole mix, I think you're on firm ground.
Thank you, City Attorney. Councilor Pierce?
No, I've just got comments.
Great.
I did have a thought, but forget it.
Okay. Any other questions, council members? Okay. We'll go to the public. Please, Vice Mayor.
Well, I do have a question. The way it's worded, public comments on non-agenda related items. So that includes both our before and after. Is that the intention? Or was the intention the before and to allow the after?
Vice Mayor, my intention is a quite incremental approach. I sure didn't bring this with the intention of, and I'm not implying that you think this, but with sort of restricting the public's opportunity to comment to the council. My interest is, for lack of no other tools left to combat vile comments leading off every meeting, that this was our next step. And so for me, the only thing that I need to come from this, I think, to result in the effect that I'm hoping for, is the first public comment period. Because to me, if they stick around to the end, if we feel that that's happening at the end, I'm going to ask for another resolution to come forward. So if we're seeing it pop up in items on the agenda, we're going to have more conversations. We're going to suspend our rules and do it that way. But I honestly, I hate doing this suspension of the rules every week, because people who are in that list that are residents who want to have a legitimate public comment are then locked out without knowing why they, sort of without being able to prepare for being here. So if a council member wants to bring an amendment to keep this isolated, I welcome it.
So I would like to amend the resolution, and I think the easiest way to do this would be, oh, that's even easier than I was going to do it. So add the word first in front of it. So first public comment, and then the rest of it can stay the same.
Can you give me a little more clarification?
So on number 4.
What are we adding first?
So first public comments on non-agenda. I was going to do it, or.
See, you were.
Yeah.
Go ahead and say it.
Okay, here, I'll do it my way, and then if it doesn't work out. Okay, so public comments on non-agenda related items may only be taken in person or via web at the end of the meeting at the physical location of the meeting, and then the rest stays the same.
To me, that feels more specific. The first makes me think only the first person commenting.
Yeah, I agree.
Maybe wrong, but.
And the reason why I put web in there, we might not always use Zoom. We might use something else, so.
City Attorney, please.
Counselor, if you might say, you're trying to just restrict this to the first.
That's correct.
Correct.
So why don't we say public comments on non-agenda related items at the beginning of the meeting may only be taken in person, et cetera, et cetera.
Okay. To me, that feels like a great solution. So that would insert at the beginning of the meeting after items in item 4.
Physical count.
Is that sufficient, Councillor Newman?
I'm reading, hold on.
Sorry to interrupt.
No, you're good. So where are we going to put it?
It would come after items, so it would read public comments on non-agenda related items at the beginning of the meeting may only be taken in person at the physical location.
I would be okay with that.
Okay. I lost thread here. Did you have a second for that?
I don't know.
Okay.
I'll second.
Motion by Newman, second by O'Doherty. Council members, any discussion on this? Okay. Great. Any members of the public wishing to speak to this item? If you're on Zoom, please raise your hand. If you're in the room, come forward. Seeing none, I'll close public comment. Back to the council before we go to the vote on the amendment. Okay, City Clerk, please call the roll on the amendment.
Somerville,
No.
Pierce,
No.
Richardson,
Yes.
Shumway,
Yes.
Gabriel,
Yes.
O'Doherty,
No. Oh, I'm sorry. This is on the
Amendment.
amendment. Yes, sorry, I'm very confused.
Newman,
Yes.
Cumby,
Yes.
and Harrington.
Yes.
That is 7 yeses and 2 nos, Your Honor.
Thank you, City Clerk. That amendment has been approved. Back to the main motion. Council members, any other questions? Okay. We'll go to the public on this. If there's any member of the public wishing to speak online, go ahead and raise your hands or come forward if you're in the room. Okay, back to to the council before the vote. Councilor Doherty, please, then Councilor Pierce, and
It
Councilor
was
Somerville.
79 years ago, this weekend, my uncle was killed by Nazis in France. I feel, when I say the Pledge of Allegiance, I feel like I mean it, and I'm honoring his sacrifice, and I really don't want Nazis speaking at our meeting. We fought a war against it, and it ruins the whole, I mean, it just ruins the spirit of the meeting. So I'd rather not hear those things at the beginning, and if they pop up at the end, then we have to deal with them. But to take the whole spirit of the meeting down right after we say the Pledge of Allegiance, to me, is just shameful. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor. Councilor Pierce.
Yeah, thanks. These comments that we've been subjected to, vile, hateful, evil, by cowards. And, yeah, it's ridiculous.
Thank you, Councilor Pierce. Councilor Somerville.
Mayor, I agree that the comments are not helpful. I wish we didn't have to listen to them. I really do. But I am concerned. It seems to me that the better course of action would just be to altogether remove public comment at the beginning of the meeting, as opposed to bifurcating it. Zoom has been an incredibly helpful tool, especially for public comment, allowing the public access. And this, although may not be legally discriminatory, this feels discriminatory towards residents who have been using it appropriately. And it feels like it's unnecessarily silencing those residents. There are a number of tools that we could be using to manage these meetings. We could be requiring registration to attend the meeting, including questionnaires. We can lock the screen so that nobody can share except for the host, which would also help. There's a number of tools that I don't believe that the city has used yet to help control the meeting, the Zoom bombing that we're experiencing. And I don't want it to continue, but I'm uncomfortable with this course of action.
Thank you, Councilor Somerville. Just by way of a little bit of a, maybe an informative point, we do lock the sharing option already. We also, my understanding is we are not permitted to require a form to participate via web conferencing at a city level. I understand the legislature can, we cannot. And we are not able to mute people that are already admitted. Once you're a panelist, you are able to unmute yourself, and then what we end up doing is just muting and unmuting back and forth. So, which was, you know, I had hoped the camera thing would sort that out. I am at the end of the tools that, and I think the city clerk's office might share the feeling of being sort of at the end of what tools are an option. So I'd welcome others. I mean, I don't relish this opportunity to modify our public comment, but.
Mayor, if I can follow up.
Please.
I'd love to get more details on why we're not allowed to require a registration before somebody logs into the meeting.
Okay.
That I'd like to see that because I don't believe that's true. But there are a number of other tools that I think that we could be using. And I know that I'm going to be outvoted tonight on this issue, but we should all take a minute and think about the residents that aren't going to participate because they can't log in at the beginning of the meeting, and we are once again making them wait to the end of the meeting, which was one of our biggest complaints over the years, and why people hated public comment was that they had to wait through the entire meeting, not knowing when they could come in and make those comments. And I think we need to afford the residents every opportunity to come into the meeting. So I appreciate the frustrations, and I would really look forward to the clarifications on what we're doing and what we're allowed to do.
Yeah, thank you, Councilor. And I think maybe just for my own clarification, was your suggestion to eliminate public comment entirely at the beginning of the meeting?
Mayor, if this is the step the council feels that they have to take, then that would be the better course of action.
Okay, thank you. Counselor Newman.
Let's just be equal about it.
Yeah, okay, understood.
So council knows, when I first started talking to the mayor about changing the webcams, what brought that on was teaching the business class at where I work. A student came to me and said, I can no longer watch city council stuff. And I was just like, why? And the Zoom bombing happened, and he happens to be Jewish, which is why I brought this on. I have not stopped researching this since that happened. Like other counselors have said, this truly pisses me off. And this is one step that other cities have been taking, is stopping the Zoom in the beginning, because there are still avenues that they can email us. Our cell phones are public comment or public knowledge. They can, according to this, council@cityoflaramie.org. They can mail it to us, or they can wait till the end. So it's not that we are stopping the public comment. I think public comment in the beginning should happen for reasons that the city council just voted to raise our salaries. Childcare is expensive. We don't know when these meetings end, right? I get asked every day, when do you think the meeting's gonna end? I have no idea. So I think keeping it in the beginning, if they can come here, tell us what they're going to say. If not, if they have to, be remote, there are other avenues still, but I think getting rid of it in the beginning, I think this is probably step one. And then if it starts happening at the end, I think then we have to reevaluate again, because I thought the cameras would have done that, and apparently not. But I don't necessarily want to get rid of it in the beginning altogether.
Thank you, Counselor. Anyone else? Counselor Pierce, please.
Yeah, thanks. Most of you know I'm not at all in favor of public comments at the beginning of the meetings. When I started on council a number of years ago, I was really supportive of that. And even in this public forum, people coming in at the beginning of those meetings, it's typically, they come in just because they want to be seen on camera. They want to espouse or talk about things that are just, kind of crazy and truly has nothing to do with what we actually can do at City Council. So it took me a very short amount of time to be not supportive of public comment at the beginning of the meeting. And I think Councilor Somerville makes a really good point that maybe that's something we should consider if we have to get that far. The other thing is I'm not necessarily supportive of this incremental approach, because 3 months from now, 2 months from now, we're going to have another 10, 20, 30-minute discussion on, and another, what do we do next? And that's frustrating. And we've got a lot of important things to be doing other than listening to this type of comment. So, but I will support this because it is a start. But I just, it just makes me crazy that this is happening. Or my husband say crazier.
Thank you, Councilor Pierce. Councilor Newman.
I know I talked twice already.
You're okay.
But I was going to bring some sort of motion to just get rid of Zoom, because that fixes the problem, but then remotely for us counselors, that kind of defeats the purpose of Zoom then too. So it's kind of like a double-edged sword, because I use Zoom sometimes. We all, I think, have used it, so I don't know. I don't know if there's like a win-win for this, unfortunately.
Yeah, Councilor Newman, I have found myself in the middle of that, sort of like maybe that narrow ledge to walk.
Right.
So far unsuccessfully, right? Maybe this will be it, but I will not hold my breath. Things seem to bubble up where you least expect them in this case. So Anyone else before we go to the vote? Okay. City Clerk, please call the roll.
Gabriel?
Yes.
Newman?
Yes.
O'Doherty?
Yes.
Pierce?
Yes.
Richardson?
Yes.
Shumway?
Yes.
Somerville?
No.
Cumby?
Yes.
Harrington?
Yes.
There's 8 yeses and 1 no, Your Honor.
Thank you, City Clerk. That item has been approved. Council members, any future work session topics you'd like to discuss? Great news. Okay, that list is getting... Okay. Councilor Pierce, 21.
Thank you, Mayor. I move that we adjourn to executive session regarding personnel, Wyoming Statute 16-4-405, lowercase a, Roman numeral 10.
Second.
Motion by Pierce, second by Richardson. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay, council members, we are adjourned. Let's just take a few minutes and